Bonjour, content de te le voir. Je m'appelle Aimon Chazet. Un minute, s'il vous plaît. Hi, welcome back. Literally this morning, the U.S. Postal Service mail carrier dropped this off. Same morning I filmed down in the Pecan Grove Recreation Area. This is the new Kibler Fowler that I've ordered. This is part 3 of the Ferdindandina powderhorn series, but I felt that I knew it was coming through the modern miracle of parcel tracking through the Postal Service. I knew it was coming, so I kind of held off and kind of staged that. But this will be its own separate subject later on. I want to get part 3 of the Ferdinandina powderhorn series out. But I did want to put this in there. As you can tell, my persona has continued to evolve as I make and acquire other parts. Neck knife, I made the French pattern neck knife, made the sheath for it. Tomahawk, throwing hawk. Aquafortis is a great stain. I've used it for everything. I think I'm probably going to do something different on this because it's walnut, trying to make it look like English walnut. So there's some work I got to do on that. The horn is, as I said, actually done. I'll get into more in depth in probably part 4 about the research that I went into to come up with the map and the historical aspect of the horn. Big belt, hat band made on the inkle loom. Also have some buckskin that I'll be making some leggings out of, and try to make some moccasins at some point. I do have some buckle shoes that are period. So we're going to kind of go with that first because, I mean, I'm portraying someone who's a relatively recent arrival into French Louisiana and coming up the Arkansas River to deal with the Pinay. So anyway, wanted to bring this in here, highlight that it's here. Lots of things going on. We've had our first cool weather of the season, so I'm really kind of getting into this. We had a first frost warning last night. Got down to about, best I can tell, about 35 degrees. Don't think we had a freeze. Lots of the state did, which is we went from 100-degree weather a week ago to having a freeze. Welcome to Oklahoma. Anyway, stay tuned. Part 3, part 4, other parts coming. Stay tuned. Okay, I'm going to discuss a little bit of the items I used to make it. It's covered in depth in the Sibley book, but you may, like I say, you may want to look at this and go, yeah, I got the stuff I can use to get started. First things you're going to need, or important things you're going to need, are a saw. I used a jeweler's saw with the scroll saw. Blade in it. Didn't need the really fine stuff, needs something a little heavier, so I put that in there. You're going to need some rasp. This is a Nicholson 49 that does great for removing some of the outer coating that's on the horn, but it's also necessary for cutting the panels or facets, as I keep calling them, on the horn. And then you're going to need a finer. This is a single cut milling bastard file fine. You're going to need that to to smooth some areas out. The actual things that work the best for working the horn and removing that outer covering and that cortex, also for doing the panels, and that is cabinet scrapers. You're going to need a card scraper. You can use use ones with profiles to get on the curvature of the horn. That works really good. It's not necessary, but it obviously helps. So a curved cabinet scraper would be beneficial. The game changer that I had was needle files for doing doing this work in here, and also right up against your cut marks. Needle files, and also they don't make them anymore. But if you can find these on eBay or someplace, these X-Acto miniature wood rasp work wonderful. So not necessary, but certainly make it easier work. The other game changer that I came across for doing this small work on these panels and really assisted in getting in tight was a flex cut set of scrapers. Flex cut came with multiple shapes to get into areas that were hard to reach. And the good thing about them is they have a burr on all of the cutting surfaces, so you don't have to burnish those in. You have to maintain them, but they're not necessary for you to get started. Pencils. I heard it once said that the most important piece of carving equipment or woodworking equipment that a person can have is a pencil. That holds true for this kind of work. Always wanting to make pencil marks. Masking tape for taping off around the circumference of your horn. When you want to make cuts and various things like that, you want to just make sure they go around evenly and not wander forward or aft a little bit. Very good for doing that. And you can leave it on there and use it as a cut guideline. The hardware that I used, there is the drawer pull that I had to modify. I basically cut the bottom half off with a fine Dremel cutoff tool. You can see that they're held on by a screw post, but that's not what you want. You want a screw. So what I did is I cut the bottom half off with my Dremel, then I drilled the rivet out with my drill press, giving me just the captured ring and this post. Okay, and then I put a brass standard slot screw down from the top, which may not be authentic, but at least it's using components that were around at the time. But that's pretty much it. You can go all in. You can it to size if you have access to a wood lathe, making a plug, and it's covered in the book. But if you don't have one, maybe someone will make one for you, or you can maybe find an old bedpost or something that you can salvage and cut a piece off of that has some taper to it, and that might work for you. Just play around with it. Like I say, get you some old horns and just mess around with them. This is what I wound up actually doing my scrimshaw with, and it's a just engraving tool. It's got a very sharp point on it, very strong point. You just scratch it into it. You can cut them with an X-Acto knife, which is how I started. I started cutting with the finest tip I could find. This is actually the one that I started with. I don't know the number on it. X-Acto does number their blades. I don't remember the number. But just any sharp knife will work. I found that doing small detailed work, the engraving, point, scratch all, it worked the best. And I used both, so it's not going to just, hey, this is what I'm going to use and I'm going to run with it. This is the handle that I wound up, standard little cheap X-Acto handle. But that's primarily what I used. Okay, one of the more important pieces of equipment that I did not highlight earlier was the fact that it's probably one of the first things specified in the Sibley book, and that is a holding fixture. Now, it's nothing more than a large dowel held in a vise. I happen to mount mine into a 2x4, so it would clamp easier into the vise, and glued it in, made sure I had a good sturdy one, and then covered it with a piece of scrap leather. If you don't have big thick leather like this, use a piece of carpet or use a piece of cardboard. All you're basically doing is just protecting the horn from your vise, holding fixture, workbench, whatever. Now, the purpose of this thing is to help you hold onto the vise, to help you hold onto the horn while you're working it. Horns are irregular shaped, so they don't hold themselves well in a vise, so you need something to kind of sturdy them. You can run them down like that. You can work these flaps, okay? Or you can put it like this, work it like this. You can hold it like this, pull in on it, work it like that. So that's a method that helps hold the horn. Now, sometimes I just hold on to it and call it good, but that does give you an extra something to put it up against. So that's a good thing to have. One thing that they didn't cover in the book, but I found to be somewhat useful, was an alternative way of holding the work, and that is actually through the spout hole. You may, if you drill a 3/8 inch spout hole, another way to do it is to, for sometimes it just doesn't work. You can also chuck you up another dowel, run it as far into your spout hole as you can, and because sometimes you got to work on it from this end, not from that end. So this gives you a method to hold it this way. Be careful because this does get thin and can break out, but it does give you something to hold on to if you need it. So holding devices, real simple, just like that. There it is.